Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to the special edition of This Week in Rideshare podcast. I am your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, May 1st, and this week, gas prices are hurting drivers, Waymo gets worse, and Uber adds hotels. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. So since Bryant Greening is unavailable today, he is literally in court fighting for you guys. I thought it'd be a good time to do this a little bit differently and in my car. So here we go. We're going to start with the first story of the week. It's one you guys already know about, but I thought it'd be great to talk about. Gas prices are hurting drivers, and Uber is offering very little to help. Now, this is an article from The Guardian, and they reported, quote, support offered by the ride-hailing companies amounts to a, quote, slap in the face. Drivers operating their services told The Guardian, as many are forced to choose between driving more to make the same money or cutting back their miles to reduce cost. The companies have both expanded rewards and discounts through financial service products in recent weeks. As everyone knows, the average U.S. fuel prices have surged from about $2.98 a gallon to above $4. In some cases, it's up to $5. But gig workers that work for Uber and Lyft say support is not enough and is pretty hollow compared to any increase in pay for drivers. As one driver pointed out, the discount reward programs offered by Uber and Lyft to offset these costs do not make sense. It turns out that they offer discounted prices at more expensive gas stations. So, per usual, Uber is sort of half-assed doing this, but it's not really helping drivers. Gas is a major issue. It has been now for a while. And then Uber and Lyft sort of make these half incentives. It's just, again, a sign that drivers are really on their own. You guys are having to fight for everything, every dollar you have. Gas prices aren't looking like they're coming down soon. And this is when, again, Uber's so quick to react in other situations, but when it comes to helping your bottom line, they're pretty slow to it. And I guess I can say it's a positive that they're trying to do something, but as this one driver pointed out, their discounted prices are at gas stations that you don't want to go to anyways. So you're probably losing money going to those gas stations versus a cheaper gas station. I know I'm in Pennsylvania right now, and one gas station may be $3.99, and down the street it was as high as $4.50. So it depends. And so if Uber is giving a discount on the one down the street or even a mile away, I'm not going to go to that gas station. I'm going to do the one that's $3.99. As drivers are pointing out here, it's now become a question: do I drive more and more taxing on my car, or do I cut back and make less money and hope that somehow offsets these expenses? And it's a lose-lose situation. And if Bryant Greening was here right now, I know he would often say it's a race to the bottom. And that's really what it feels like with this story. We're going to jump to the second story here. It's a very interesting topic. We talk about robo-taxis all the time, and Waymo. This is the first time we're seeing actual evidence that Waymo is getting worse. And this is from Wired, and they reported, quote, emergency first responder leaders told federal regulators in a private meeting last month that they were frustrated with the performance of autonomous vehicles on their streets. That city firefighters, police officers, and paramedics are forced to spend time during emergencies resolving issues with frozen or stuck cars. One fire official called them, quote, a safety issue for our crews as well as the victims. Wire actually obtained an audio recording of that meeting. Officials from San Fran and Austin, where Waymo has been ferrying passengers without drivers for more than a year, said the vehicle's performance is getting worse. We are actually seeing something interesting: backsliding of some things that had been improved upon. This is from Mary Carroll, the executive director of San Fran's Department of Emergency Management. She told officials with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration that they are committing more traffic violations now than they were before. In Austin, first responders have been frequently stymied by Waymo's, quote, freezing up. The head of the highway enforcement said for the Austin Police Department. White said that contrary to what Waymo had told first responders, the vehicles often fail to recognize or respond to officers' hand signals. which can lead to cascading delays during emergencies or unusual road incidents. One person had said, I believe the technology was deployed too quickly in too vast amounts with hundreds of vehicles when it wasn't really ready. This is fascinating because we had discussed this on this show so many times. Bryant and I talk about this often that A, it was rushed, but B, we often have discussed, and now we're seeing in writing here, what happens when we start adding more cars and more Waymos, and now there's issues on the road. It felt like, with so few cars, it seemed okay, but now they're adding to it. And so now what you're seeing is, as they say, their exact words are, the tech is backsliding. And things like I'm reading here, things like not adhering to just hand gestures, may start first as a freeze up or a glitch. But what happens if that Waymo just doesn't stop? And during, a police investigation, an accident, anything. And the fact that it's now being confirmed, at least right now, by San Francisco and Austin, probably indicates that it's happening in the other cities as well. They were some of the first to do this, so they're obviously going to see the brunt of these issues now. And obviously we see all the time that Waymo's response is, hey, we've made updates, we're fixing these things. And that's always been the response for the most part. The fact that they're saying that this is backpedaling means that these updates aren't working, or maybe the updates are making things worse. There was a story that we did a little while ago where they had even mentioned, Waymo actually mentioned that they were redesigning some of the software to be more aggressive drivers like humans are. And in some ways that was good because it stopped the cars from panicking, but now we're seeing the reverse effect. And so this is a really interesting time between balancing just tech and driving perfectly and driving like a human and also responding like a human, but also the safety needing to be involved in tech because it's still not a human. It doesn't respond as quickly. Fascinating read. It's on Wired. There's also a few other articles that are covering it that I saw. But the fact that two different cities are saying, look, this is getting worse, isn't a good sign. And again, if Bryant was here, I'm sure he would say the tech isn't ready. They should still be in the desert testing this out. We had Torsten on, the rideshare guy. He has confirmed this. I think it's just a matter of time until we see more cities responding and saying, yeah, the more Waymos we get on the roads, the more issues we're having. So as I always say, we will see what happens next, and I'm sure there'll be more articles about this. And our final story this week, which I think is interesting, and I bring this up because of a story that we covered last week, Uber is now partnering with Expedia. So Uber is adding hotel bookings to its app, and this is from Bloomberg, and they reported, quote, the San Fran-based company has partnered with Expedia to make its hotel selection available in the Uber app starting in the U.S., Uber said in a statement on Wednesday as part of its annual product event. Vacation rentals from Expedia's Vrbo brand will be added later this year. So for every hotel booking, members of the paid Uber One program can earn 10% back in credits that can be applied towards future rides or delivery orders. Customers can also save as much as 20% on a subset of about 10,000 hotels that Uber added. Uber ride bookings will be added to the Expedia app in June, the company said. This is really interesting because here's Airbnb adding transportation services and here's Uber adding hotel services. So I feel like we talked a little bit about this last week on the podcast. I feel like we're heading into what I would call 2.0 or maybe even 3.0 of gig economy apps, rideshare / transportation apps. They originally were isolated apps that you had to use to do, get a rideshare, book a hotel or an Airbnb. Now, and Uber has said this for a while, and I used to joke and I didn't believe it was true, but it is true. Uber said we're not just transportation, we are a tech company. And so they're really proving that with their technology. They're saying we are moving away from just rideshare. We are including all these other features and all these other things you can do. And now, weirdly, whether it's a response or just by need, these other apps are doing the same. So these other gig disruptive apps that were really designed to disrupt one market are now spreading out. So now you have Airbnb reaching into rideshare. You have rideshare reaching into partnering with Vrbo. it's a very interesting dynamic. I don't know which way it's going to go. I don't know if eventually these will all consolidate in 10 years. It's kind of like the Wild West now. And then you throw in autonomous vehicles like Waymo and even Tesla trying to run their own sort of app service. You end up in a really interesting world where someone is trying to make this a one app fits all. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't, the tech still in a lot of these services isn't great. I mean, even just Uber's app by default often has a lot of problems for the driver and even sometimes the passenger using it. Lyft isn't much better. I know Airbnb has been pretty solid. It's a pretty straightforward app, but adding the sort of rideshare requesting a ride service, I don't know. This is such a new world for all these companies to be kind of jumping into. And that's why it really feels like the next generation of not just disruptive tech, but like, hey, we're now just going to grab anything we think that can keep someone on their phone on our app. Find it very fascinating. And this just came out. So, and again, they don't even have Verbo yet. That'll be added later this year. It's going to be in June for Uber to be added to the Expedia app. Hasn't happened yet. When it does, I'd love to hear from people and see what your thoughts are on this. If you're using it, if you are a driver and what you think, maybe this could be a benefit to you, maybe not. Maybe it will increase rides. I don't know. I do know that it's a very interesting time where there's a lot of cross intersection of tech and disrupting. It's like they're now going to start attacking each other, I guess. I don't know. I do find it very fascinating, though. But that is the stories for this week. I will, of course, give a big shout out to Legal Rideshare. We are the first law firm in the U.S. that we are focused entirely on Uber, Lyft, Robotaxi, Waymo, accidents, and injuries. If you get into an accident, whether you're a driver, you're a passenger, or you're a victim, do not hesitate to contact us. Even if you just have a question, you'll either speak to myself or you'll speak to Bryant Greening, who's the lead attorney. We will guide you through the process. So if you have questions or concerns, we're happy to answer them. The best place to find us is legalrideshare.com. All of our information is on the site. So that is the end of this very special edition of This Week in Rideshare. And as I like to say, that is the end of This Week in Rideshare. See you next week.